Robin had been left entirely free to choose what he did with his life. While his sister Nellie saw herself as indispensable within the house, finding a niche in its daily running and in caring for their mother, he would have to search for a vocation. He had seen a newspaper advertisement stating that Lastingham, a nearby village, was in need of a provisional postman. The job only required access to a bicycle, and fortunately he could borrow his sister's. Before starting the job, he was shown the ropes by the retiring postman. The area was in a continuous losing battle against the sea, surrendering swathes of land each year to coastal erosion. Mother Nature had obscured any logic in the village's original layout, isolating buildings and creating routes to nowhere. They were in a region of unadopted roads, underdefined boundaries, random structures at uncoordinated angles.
What about that house, Mr. Burnsall?
There's no post there.
You mean the house is empty?
Not empty, but there's no post.
Who lives there?
Miss Fearon lives there. Lovely as a linnet, they reckon. But still no post.
Have you ever seen her, Mr. Burnsall?
I've never seen a robin, no.
Then how do you know she exists?
Take a good look. Likes to keep warm, does Miss Fearon. It's always the same. Winter, summer.
Has the house got a name?
Why would it have?
To deliver coal?
If she burns coal, but then she might go out at night and help herself to the peat.
I didn't even know there was any peat.
Postman's claims filled him with curiosity. If Robin really wished to glimpse Miss Fearon, he had at least been suggested a possible hour. But the unreliability of the old man's tale, as well as an anxiety over approaching a house with no post to deliver, dissuaded him from attempting to investigate. Problems, if meant to be solved, solve themselves more effectively than we can. Shortly after he began in the job, a letter appeared addressed to Miss Rosetta Fearon.
I heard she never gets anything.
It's a questionnaire. I got sent one. I'm sure you'll be getting one as well.
Postman appeared to have been proved right about three important matters: the name, the sex and the unmarried status. There was reason, therefore, to suppose that he might be proved right about his fourth and most important claim. He would of course do all he could to help anyone in need, not only in his role as a postman, but on his own time also. But the task was certainly made more appealing by the prospect that it was an allegedly beautiful woman he was helping. It was not until later in the day did he realise that in the excitement of discovering his letter, he'd forgotten completely to deliver the one addressed to Miss Fearon. Properly, he ought to go back at once, but this would surely attract attention, returning back on his route to make 2 visits in one day. No matter, he could do it tomorrow. At least he would then have an official reason to collect her next letter. There would be more for him. That was as good as guaranteed. He said nothing to anyone, carrying this secret around with him and hiding the letter in his carved wooden box. He'd read over the beautifully written text so many times that night that he could recite Miss Fearon's message word for word to himself as he returned the next day to deliver her correspondence. Signing off his letters with a curt postman perhaps struck an overly formal tone, but writing "your postman" seemed far too obsequious. Was it right to use his own name? She can't have even known it. They had never been properly introduced. He ought to essay more warmth of expression if he were to continue their correspondence. He no longer had any working business to be approaching that house at all, unless to belatedly deliver her original communication, which was probably gone forever. The old postman had given him no advice on what to do about losing post. Robin had heard from one of his colleagues at the post office that the poor man was now unfortunately suffering from an as yet unknown illness. Robin thought she had opened up more in this most recent letter, adopting a more familiar tone and communicating more personal details to him. Dare he hope this to be proof of an advancing intimacy? Pleasant summer weather announced the arrival of visitors to the seaside, some coming from Lastingham, most from towns further inland. He would look among the young women for any sign that one could match his idea of Rosetta Fearon. But none of the visiting young women from inland towns looked like their hand could have penned the elegant calligraphy in her letters. Robin began to notice a woman, seen faintly through the morning haze, like a mirage brought on by terrible thirst. No details could be made out from his viewpoint. Instead, an impressionistic sense of beauty was imposed upon him. He finally had an answer to that last claim made by the old postman. This must be Rosetta Fearon. He saw with delight that a little paper kiss, a St. Andrew's cross, adorned her name on this letter. He had felt quite aware of the growing connection between them, but to see hard evidence from that symbol written down on paper was quite another thing. His step would be light for the next hour or two. The next day, a large parcel arrived addressed to Miss Rosetta Fearon. As correspondence to her of any kind had previously been notoriously minimal, it was the cause of great interest that morning in the post office.
Take it tomorrow. The weather's bad today.
I'll manage. Who could have sent it?
The old postman hadn't warned him of parcels as much of a burden as this. It was a shame he was still unwell. The exertion was made tolerable by the promise that, due to the size of the parcel, he would have to deliver it through the front door himself. finally greeting Miss Fearon and laying eyes on her for the first time. He would have carried it 10 times the distance for that reward.
Parcel?
What's in it?
It's very heavy.
So what? All right. I don't want it.
It's not addressed to you.
You can keep the thing.
Having missed the chance of seeing his beauty, he wished for enough courage to see if her parcel had been received, but decided it would be unwise to take a chance on it. Perhaps she'd notice it at night when emerging to gather peat.
Robin.
Robin decided that he could no longer delay preparing for a possible appeal for help from Miss Fearon. He could not bring her home if she sought refuge. He would have to rent a room for her to stay in a nearby town where neither of them would be recognized or questioned. Perhaps he could stay also. He was very surprised not to see his sister setting the table for dinner. His mother informed him she was visiting a friend who had suddenly fallen sick. Fortunately, she had not taken her bicycle. In the clear light of day, a number of questions came to Robin about the previous day's events. How had the man Paul not noticed the letters addressed to him, or the replies that he'd made and delivered unsealed? How had such a man left Miss Fearon unslain if he had seen them? Perhaps the man was not able to read. How, living with such a man and knowing almost nothing about him, had she the courage to trust and continue correspondence with a postman she also knew nothing about, and could only have examined, if at all, through a window or crevice? He found a room in a boarding house ran by a Mrs. Grady, matriarch of a large family, who agreed also to cook and clean for Miss Fearon for only a little extra charge. All now being organised, he'd write her a letter of his own. On his journey home, he visited a local landmark on the suggestion of Mrs. Grady, an old pump dedicated to Thomas Young, the man who deciphered the untranslatable ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs using the Rosetta Stone, liberating their mysterious dead language. He reflected on the coincidence in the name as he cycled away. When a subject occupies your thoughts for long enough, it manifests in the world in the most unlikely places.
Nellie hasn't returned.
Don't worry, she'll be back soon.
Sometimes I do worry about you both.
You don't have to worry about me.
Oh, Robin, you're mine anyway.
I wouldn't worry about it. But I've got to go. You know, letters, parcels, etc. All to be delivered.
At every moment of the journey, he was aware of the letter's presence against him, an apprehensive weight on his noble crusade. He ignored all other post and deliveries that day, making his way along the vanishing cliffs, directly to the isolated house. What did it matter if they were delayed? What do the other letters matter compared to this? The absence of a letter for the first time did not concern Robin as he sat alone in the rented room. He did not need to be told that Rosetta Fearon must be facing an inner turmoil. He simply had to await her flight to his nest of safety. Earlier in the day, he had been made aware that the retired postman had died the previous night. His colleague at the post office had conveyed the news to him midway through passing him the morning deliveries. Something fearful had finally set in, and the end had come as something of a release. arrival of his sister did come as some surprise to him. Surely, he thought, she could not know of his affairs. They must be kept a secret for Miss Fearon's sake.
It's all I could afford.
I hope she's got short legs. Who is it, Robin?
Well, her name is Rosetta Fearon. You won't know her. It won't mean anything to you.
Won't it? It means a lot to a lot of people. I assume you've written letters to her. You're not the first to.
You won't tell people, Nellie.
No, but you won't get that one into bed. Not this one or any other.
But that isn't the whole point, Nellie. That's not the only thing there is.
No, she doesn't see the light of day. There's something funny about her.
Please tell me what you mean.
She's not of our kind. She knows nobody and doesn't want to.
Have you any idea what she's been through?
How about you? Have you, Robin?
Nobody wants to know her, I can tell you that.
How can you, or anyone else, possibly know when no one even speaks to her?
I'm speaking to you, Robin. You can take it or leave it.
How did you find out about me? About this place?
Everything you do is an open book to me. Always has been. You must know that. I advise you, give it up and come home. For your sake, come back home.
But I've not left home.
What's this then?
Something additional. That's all.
That's not possible, Robin. You have one or the other.
It's nothing as dramatic as that. I'll be back home soon. You'll see.
Take care, Robin. Do try.
Postman. I'll be doing something else soon.
So shall I. Do sit down.
I've arranged for the landlady, Mrs. Grady, to cook for you, if you would like.
I've not been eating very much for some time now. I've been through rather an ordeal, you know.
So it seems. How long have you lived in Lastingham?
I was left the house by my uncle. In his will, you know.
And you moved in?
There seemed nothing better to do.
I was told it had no name. The house. I found that hard to believe.
It used to be called Niente. It's Italian for nothing. The letters fell off, and before I could arrange for them to be put back, Paul was there.
Couldn't he put them back on?
Paul could do nothing. He couldn't even light a match.
He didn't look like that. I saw him once, you know.
Paul was very different from his looks. That was something I soon learnt.
I saw him when I delivered a parcel. It was addressed to you, but he wouldn't let me take it in. Did you ever get it?
I expect so. Parcels were always coming and going. Paul did what he thought was best with them. He was my husband, remember? He was not totally inconsiderate. I told you he was not.
You told me things I couldn't quite follow. Perhaps you didn't feel like going into much detail, but perhaps you could tell me more now? I don't want to ask if you don't want to talk.
I would rather not. I've never understood how it happened. That and many other things. So much has seemed like a dream. But you saw Paul for yourself. Why would anyone dream up him?
We'd better think to the future.
How practical you are.
That's best, isn't it?
I think I had better remain here for a while. I shall use the time to rest, and when I'm strong enough, I shall go abroad. You must understand, Postman, I have very little money. Paul was very stringent, though that was the least of the reasons I had to leave. I had no choice.
But we...
Of course, I shall repay you every penny in the end. When I am strong enough, I shall make my way abroad. There was very little money left by my uncle. Little of anything except the house. Apart from him and now you, there is no one in England who would help me. Not my family, not my friends. I hope you have no idea what people are like, Postman. I shall let no one near me again. Paul was the last.
I shall do everything I can.
I shall pay you with interest as well, of course. In the meantime, I throw myself upon you. Enter.
How are you, my dear?
Fairly well. Tired after my ordeal.
Oh, I'll see the children are quiet so you can rest and sleep in peace. They're good kids. You'll not hear one sound out of them.
I'm sure I'll make friends with all of them while I'm here.
And if there's anything you need buying, I'll send the eldest into town tomorrow.
Oh, thank you. I'll make a list.
We'll be eating in the next hour.
Thank you, Mrs. Grady. I'm quite hungry. For the first time I can remember.
Call me Maureen. And will Robin be staying?
No. I can't possibly. I'm expected home. But I shall return tomorrow evening, around the same time, or maybe a bit earlier.
Desperately he wished that he could have added, and with £1,000 in banknotes. He reflected that night that it was not only money that was a problem. Romance was singularly lacking in everything that had happened, and practicality all too intrusive.
few little things for her, here and there.
Yes, I'll bring the rest tomorrow, or I'll bring as much as I can. If there's any delay, then of course I'll pay interest.
She's such a charming lady.
Yes, but don't buy anything else for her. I can't afford it.
Slim purse never bought fair lady, don't they say?
What's all that meat doing here?
I bought it for my dog, but now it's ill. It's been sick outside all day. The children are fascinated by it.
I didn't know you had a dog.
I wonder if you could do something with it. I'm not much better with a pet than I was with a husband.
I can't take it home.
Then don't take it home. Perhaps it'll turn into a handsome prince.
But I'm your handsome prince.
I have a handsome prince. I thought I made all this clear.
No, actually, you didn't. Where is this handsome prince?
Abroad. I'm on my way to him. I told you in my letters I needed help with my plan to leave, and you played your part admirably.
So that's all there is?
There is no need to be disagreeable. I made all this clear from the first. Anything else you may have read into them is entirely of your own imagination.
What about Paul?
I shall divorce Paul.
What about me?
I'm very grateful for all you've done, and I hope you continue to do it for a few more weeks. Of course, you don't need to visit me every day. The Grady children can go between us when necessary. They are fine children. I bought them toy guns, the girls too. They don't like being left out nowadays. Sit down. I'll tell you exactly what to do. Find yourself a nice, ordinary girl. Not too attractive, or you'll be jealous all the time. Not too bright, or you'll be anxious all the time. Not too rich, or you'll have nothing to strive for. And not too original, or she'll upset people. There are plenty around. Throw a stone anywhere and you'll find one.
You don't live like that.
I don't live at all. Haven't you realized that? I'm the person every postman meets in the end.
I'm only a provisional postman.
Do what I said. What else is there for you now?
I have to meet your bills.
Only until I can repay you. And with interest, I promise.
It's in the end for you and me.
As he was leaving, Mrs. Grady accosted him in the hallway. "You'll pay me tomorrow then," she said. "I'm not the Queen of Sheba, you know."